So this week we are going to talk about monetary policy that we already know, which is one of the strongest tools of the government to use when the economy is under recession or in the boom time, okay, to implement expansionary policy or contractionary policy. So then we are going to consider time inconsistency issue and credibility issue. We will see how it's important to have central banks with strongly credible history, okay? Which means that we trust central bank and we follow what they say and we expect our future expectations based on the announcements made by central bank, okay? So that one is very important. If it's not credible, then it may lead to some outcomes which is going to affect negatively on the economy. Okay. So which means that now we will be talking about people's human behavior, okay, and their expectations. Why human behavior is so important in macroeconomics, and why do we study it? Human behavior. So we study human behavior in order to know about people's expectations, which is important for us to make some policies which is going to give us optimal outcomes. Okay. For example, these days, the study of big data is now growing and growing and growing, and it will grow. Okay, it's one of the very popular field of study, which is growing. Economics with data analytics is now one of the growing fields, okay, which I really encourage you if you are interested to go in that field. Okay, the great future is promised for you. So, for example, let me start with an example. So this summer, during the summer, my supervisor, he visited Uzbekistan, okay, and we had just a week. He stayed with us, with my family, and we were traveling to Samarkand, Bukhara, with that Afrasiab and other types of old trains. And while we were on the train, he gave me a story which happened in Korea recently. You know that data on train, the ticket, that purchases and those sales. Thousands of millions of transactions happen every day. Okay, so which means that daily data makes so much. So which means that annual data makes millions of billions of data included. Okay. So when those big data analysts, okay, they were doing research on that sales of tickets, they found out one outlier. Something was wrong with the data. Okay, these are all individuals, purchases of tickets. And when they looked at that outlier, they figured out there is one person, okay, individual, who purchases tickets, he buys the ticket, okay, purchases ticket, and just before the departure of the train, he cancels. Okay? Within 20 minutes. If it's, that canceled within that 20 minutes, you can refund the money that you invested for buying the ticket, okay? And when they check, this person has been doing it for about 1 year or more. Buying, canceling, buying, canceling, buying, canceling. And then, because it's not normal case why he's doing it, right? Then they try to check. They go so special agent, they don't just check the guy. The train is always, the departure train is from Busan to Seoul, but just before 20 minutes or 10 minutes, it's canceling the ticket. What's happening? Everywhere is cameras, they use the surveillance cameras and figured out the person bought the ticket, canceled the ticket, took the train. Okay? Took the train. It turned out, if it's canceled just 10 minutes before the departure, that it does not show as a canceled ticket in the train within that hours. He could travel without paying. Okay? And what happened, they got the gentleman, okay? And if, let's suppose within that 1 year or 2 years he saved $2,000, Korean government, you know, penalized him 10 or even more times. Penalty, fine. Plus, he was disgraced on media to entire Korea. This person is such a good person. Okay? So which means by using this kind of big data analysis, they found this kind of shortcomings in the economy. Alright? So now, why are they using it? Because they use the big data in order to study our minds. How people behave differently in different situations. For example, if you go to department stores, you know, that meat section, right? Meat section, you find on one side diapers available, which has nothing to do with meat. Baby diapers. Why do they do it? You know, because they know that females, you know, that mothers, when they come to buy meat, usually they may forget about the diapers. Once they see the diapers, then they will remember and buy. So therefore, when you go to department store to different parts, okay, you will find totally not related items. They put it with, because they know that people behavior, okay, when they go to that section, they will pay attention to this one and they will buy. Or if you go, for example, to department stores, you don't see any watches available, clocks. Okay? You don't. Why? It's one marketing strategy. When they see those clocks, okay, and people immediately think, oh, now I have to rush home. If that clock is not available, they stay and they will be doing shopping slowly. Or usually, if you go to department stores, they always try to put very slow music. So they will be slowly walking and slowly checking the items and slowly buying more. Okay? So these all of these things were by studying human beings. Okay? So this is one, you know, big data which, you know, can give you. Okay? So Lord, expectations of people. We study behavior in macroeconomics to know about people's expectations. Of course, we are not able to predict about the future perfectly, but we may expect. Okay? Let's suppose, if you consider your coursework marks, all right? Let's suppose that there is a student with a mark of 28 from coursework. 28. Very dangerous mark, yes? 28. Just 2 marks is not available to make it 30, which will make it for a student, if you get a little more, then he will pass. If it's 28, semester 9 is guaranteed, right? So Lord, as a lecturer of macroeconomics, if I would like to have my students good expectation, okay, I will try my best to find some just 2 marks from somewhere and add maybe 30. Why? Because if the student sees it's 30, he will develop hope about the future. So if I do my best, now I was lazy, as some of our students were, okay? If I do my best, I will get a little higher mark from the final, then I don't have to stay in summer. Alright? It's going to be like this. I will do it because I expect my students will develop some positive expectations. Alright? Another thing. That positive expectations may have very good outcome in the future. Why? Because, you know, for the remaining half semester, that student may change totally. May you know, learn many good things from this mark because favor was given for it. Who knows that person who got the 28 which was made 30 will become the government leader? No one knows. And that government leader will be making policies like monetary policy that we are going to study today. Okay? Because he took teaching excellence like Jane, he knows about everything. Maybe because of that study he will be doing right policy implementation. If it's right policy implementation, then I will be living in a good economy. My children will be living in good economy. Okay? So it's like this. Alright? But if the case is like A, there is no way to make it 30. Okay? Good. So this is about expectations. But from the final, I will approach usually different strategy, opposite. Students get 70 plus from course score. But when I check their final, it turns out to be 28. I intentionally leave it as they did, even though there is a possibility at 2. I don't change, because it will tell you what that person is. Okay? Intentional, I can make even 29. The student will come. Just 1 mark, please. I will say no. Semester 9 is guaranteed for you. Okay. How were you able to get 70 plus? And there were many cases like this. Okay? I can show you the data if you want. Alright. Regarding expectations, okay? So Robert Lucas, one of the prominent economists, okay, of 20th century, so he introduced a new idea to economics, okay? So we said that now, while making those economic policies, while studying economics, economists should also pay close attention how people form their expectations about the future. Okay? How people they will. So which means that we have to consider people's behavior too for changes in the economy. If policymakers are going to implement a fiscal or monetary policy, all right? So, which means that the economists, we always, the basement of economics, why it's mathematics? Because whatever we do, we usually take it from the proof that we get mathematically through. We will build a model, okay, x1, x2, x3, whatever, and based on given model on fiscal or monetary policy, we'll try to implement policies. If we are going to change money supply by this percent, okay, inflation will change by that percent. And based on that one, we will make that kind of policy developments, okay, and we will try to implement. But Lucas said, while making it, maybe it is true, but because of these changes in policies, okay, in these macroeconomic factors, people may behave differently. If they behave differently in a negative way, the outcome is going to be very negative. Okay? So which means that Lucas criticized that, the traditional way of economics. We don't have to, stick on the models that we developed, which you also developed, and you are developing in your dissertation, okay? We don't have to stick on this one. We have to consider it, and plus we have to learn how this outcome is going to affect on people's expectations. Okay? So that type of criticism of Lucas is called Lucas critique. Okay? He is criticizing. For example, this is, let's suppose that equation for consumption, which depends on income and tax. Alright? Let's suppose the data that was used for this one is highly valid. It's real data. Very valid, and the outcome that was derived, okay, highly significant, very robust. No shortcomings, okay? If it's the case, then the expectation, all right, if we are going to increase tax rate by 1 unit, then people on average, they will be spending less, only 5 cents less on consumption, right? Or if income, increases by $1, the people will be spending 95 cents for their consumption. Policymakers, if they try to increase tax rate in the economy, they usually look at this kind of robust outcomes. Based on this outcome, then they will make policy. All right, if it's going to be 5% decrease, 10%, so now it's possible if we increase tax rate by 2%. It's okay. All right, so we can make it. So, and they will respect it. If it's going to, then consumption will not reduce very significantly, it's fine. Policy is developed, right? But Lucas said it's not true. If tax rate is increased, that it may lead to much worse consequences. For example, after a year, once that policy was implemented, the result turned out to be like this. Is it still true? It's not true anymore, right? Okay. When tax rate in the economy is growing, right? If it's higher tax, automatically people are paying more from their income, which means that automatically it will have, that effect on your mind. Now you think that you are poorer compared to last month, because now you are paying less cash in your hands. Because of that one, you are going to reduce your consumption. One. It's one effect, okay? Another effect. Another effect can be because they are doing the same job now. And you were doing the same job last month. But now for the same job you are paid less. Which means that people automatically, as human beings, human capital, they will lose productivity. They will be contributing less because now they are paying us less money. Why should I work as I worked last week that hard? Okay, just two effects can make it this type of effect. All right. So therefore, let's suppose you are the owner of a company, and now your company is going through under recession. Which means if it's under recession, one way that you may consider, you have to cut the wages. Yeah. Another, you have to fire some of your workers. Which one would you consider? Firing workers or reducing wages? Firing. Okay. So what? If you reduce wages, all right? If you have 5,000 people working under you, it means that reducing wages will reduce productivity of 5,000 people. Okay, now because they pay less. But if you fire only 100 people, it will affect negative only on them, not the rest. And which one is more optimal solution? You can make a conclusion. Okay? Good. So this is so look. On the other hand, whether that government policy is going to be very active or passive, that historical records are very important. Historical records. For example, if you consider the US, okay? This country, experienced so many shocks, very big shocks and small shocks. In 1930s, they experienced Great Depression, right? And they had, oil price shocks in 1970s. In 2000, early 2000, they had the dot-com crisis and that Great Recession in late 2000. They experienced all of these shocks, yes? Were they able to recover from all of them? They were. Yes? So they were able to recover. Of course, that Great Depression took a very long time, about 13 years. Okay? But for each time, it was affected by the recession, they were able to find a way to find a solution, right? Okay. On the other hand, we have countries like Argentina. I think they defaulted more than 3 times. Okay. Once there was a strong recession, the economy was not able to control the situation and they defaulted, which means that, sorry, we are not able to pay your debts back. Another time, there was another, big shock, again default. Another big shock, again default. So now, if you consider these 2 cases, people in the United States compared to Argentinians, okay, if economies experience a certain type of recession, in this country, of course, they will have some negative expectations. There will be some recession, but it's not going to be as this. All right? One very strong sign of, recession, aggregate demand will go down, yes? Which is going to lead the economy into further recession. In countries like the United States, there will be decline, but it's not going to be very large. Why? People believe that there will be solution found for this problem. While in here, the situation is going to be very bad. Because they know government is not able to control this situation. All right? So therefore, in here, if the history is, the country was experiencing all of the shocks, and always was finding a way, that it means that whatever policy is going to be implemented, it will have good effect, active policy. But if the history shows that they all fail, whatever that commitments they will make, anywhere they will fail, passive type of policy. Okay? So which means that nations, they will be forming their expectations about stabilization based on historical records too. Okay? Good. For example, in late 1980s, that when it was Soviet Union, before the break of Soviet Union, one of leaders in the Soviet Union, they came up with an idea. Now we are going to issue government bonds. And they were issuing government bonds and selling to the nation. And people were buying it. And they know there is an interest return, okay? There were maybe millions of people, okay? If they had no money, they were selling their cars in order to buy bonds, which was super luxurious during that time. They were selling their apartments, houses, just to buy bonds, government bonds, okay? And what happened later? After a year or so that Soviet Union was collapsed, okay, that bond which was bought for 1 car price was not even able to buy 1 bicycle. Not bicycle, but tricycle. Okay? It turned out to be like this. And how did it affect on us? After that moment, all people in that Soviet Union, okay, they totally lost trust to banks. Losing trust to banks leads to very dangerous thing. There will not be proper velocity of money. Okay? Totally loss to banks, which means that banks are not able to provide financial resources to businesses if it's going to be the case. So, but now, things have been changing, now 30 years passed, still, if you ask your father, he would not be willing to deposit his money to bank, because he still feels that pain. But regarding you, for you, no problem. Okay? So which means that central banks, if they lose credibility, trust is very dangerous. Alright, regarding credibility, okay? So it also depends whether that policy is ruled by, you know, is controlled by, conducted by rule or discretion. If the policy is conducted by rule or commitment, okay, it means that if government is going to announce certain policy, we are going to make, let's suppose, we are going to keep inflation in 3% level. All right? Whatever the future consequences are, central bank will keep its promise and it will keep that 3% as it is. Because central bank committed, they made a promise, we will keep it to be whatever. So if it's going to be high, we will reduce money supply. If it's less, we will increase money supply. We will keep it. Okay? Under rule, under commitment. But if it's under discretion, so now central bank can say that we are going to keep central, inflation to be in 3%, even though there was expansionary policy. If interest rate is not lower, definitely it will lead to inflation, right? Inflation, because there is more money available. But central bank, so now we will keep it 3%, no problem. But when time comes, then they will look at the situation. Then after that, they will make a decision. Or now it seems that based on the situation, we have to make it 8%. 8%. It's under discretion. So policymakers, they are going to make, they change their, the policies based on the situation. Which means that one solution in one optimal point is not anymore solution in another. For example, I think President Trump and Hillary Clinton, right? Who, there was a very strong debate, when they were in that election time. Yeah, election time is coming soon again. In the United States, they have that type of system, right? All the president candidates, they are lined up, right? And there is an audience of those reporters and economists, lawyers, whatever. They will be asking questions. And they will be asking questions very, sensitive questions sometimes, right? So question, how are you going to deal with illegal immigration? One question. What was the answer of Trump? President Trump?
Will the wall?
So he said, I'm going to build a wall, right? And I will, deport all of those illegal migrants from the US, right? So is he building the wall? Why not? He is building the wall.
He's ready.
So was it built as it was promised? Okay. So which means that if it's under commitment, or if policies, there is very strong commitment, that should be 100% done. Let's say if there was an announcement about I'm going to build a wall, is it going to affect positively on his president candidacy or negative? Human rights activists, they will criticize it, right? It is against human rights. But there were millions of Americans, okay, who are low-income families, okay, and some others who are affected by low-wage offers by migrants, okay, who are losing their jobs, or because of those competing labor, their wages are lower. They were supporting him. Who knows? Maybe he won the election because of their contribution. Because he made, I will build a wall. Okay? Which means that by making that type of announcement, he was affecting on people's expectations. So these low-income people, they were forming good expectations, which means that those migrants, they are not going to be anymore coming to our country, which means there will be less competition, which means that our wages will be rising, our life will be better. Okay? So this type of, or in Uzbekistan, for example, during those elections for, if they want to become deputies, or if they want to become hakims, what will they say? We are going to build you roads. We will build a bridge for you. 100 new Mercedes, those buses, I will bring it from Germany for you. Once they are elected, nothing happens. Which means that that policy is not conducted by rule or discretion. Okay? If it's the case, we don't trust. So the policies can be conducted by rule, but at the same time, it can be either passive, or active. Okay? For example, monetary stability. There must be, that steady growth in money supply. Why? Because population grows, yes. And our demand is growing, which means we need more money. So if it's going to be, the steady growth, then it's good for the economy, right? One, passive way. But if you want to make it more active, because money supply effects on what? Inflation, and inflation effects on unemployment, right? Which is inverse related. So therefore, in active, they try to control this model with unemployment. More active. Okay? Okay. Economists, all right? They believe that it's too dangerous. It's too dangerous to give those policy makers who are conducting the economy by discretion some important tools. It's too dangerous. Why? If policy makers are, for example, opportunistic, or they are incompetent, which means that because they are policy makers, they are able to use two tools, yes? One is fiscal one, another one monetary policy, which means they have power to effect on that one. Expansionary policy or contractionary policy. If that expansionary policy is implemented in a wrong way, it will economists always, in most of the countries, if policymakers are going to come up with one idea, we are going to make these policy implementations. Economists immediately will respond. How about its effect on this? Alright? For example, as we already, when Churchill, he was a leader, okay, he was the Secretary of Treasury after the World War I. What was his suggestion? Now again, we have to go back to Bretton Woods system, right? And we have when the prices, the golden standard. When the prices were already very high, he wanted to make that convertibility of gold to pounds equally same before the World War I. Who that expressed counter argument to him? Keynes, right? Immediately, he said, if Mr. If he is going to implement that policy, Mr. Churchill, then it's going to lead us to very strong recession. Okay? Because he was an economist and he was macroeconomist. And did it really happen? It really happened. Okay? So therefore, when you become good economists, you will be doing that type of work too. If government leaders are going to express certain type of expansionary policy or whatever, you will not be only just looking and clapping, but you should say, if it's going to happen, then it will lead to this kind of negative outcomes or this kind of positive outcomes. So why is the case? Because not all politicians are economists, all right? And another thing, there are charlatans among the politicians. They, if you just talk with them, they know everything, even though they don't know anything. Because they have, that title on their shoulders, they can only talk. And they will talk, maybe it has nothing to do with the economy, okay, they will be making such certain type of policies which is going to affect negative to all our lives. Another thing. Some economists fear that politicians use macroeconomic policy to future their electoral ends. How is it? For example, one president, in the United States, it's 2 times over. You can be elected 2 times, right? In our country, you can be elected 2 times. In some other countries, there is only 1 election. All right? So, if there is opportunity to be elected twice, all right? Once you become a president, that you know that after 4 years or 5 years, there is another election coming, right? And at that time, in order to be re-elected, you should be very loud by the nation. And you should be re-elected. What is important for people, better life. So now, president, at this point will say, now I have to make this kind of strategies in the economy. So when it comes at election time, the economy should look perfect. Okay? For example, when this president was elected, there were many states, okay? According to the data, in state number 1, there was the least, voters who voted for him. Okay, the least. This president is very smart. Okay, he will, in order to make economy better look at this point, he will be implementing expansionary policy, increasing government spending and decreasing tax rate. Do people like reduction tax? Yeah, they do, right? They love it. One, he is now a little light, okay? Government spending. Now, by increasing government spending, because it's a very strategically smart person, he will be building all of those, roads, bridges, in the state where there was the least number of voters for it. Within 3 or 4 years, he will be able to convince these people again to vote for him. Why? Because he's doing creating so many jobs, whatever. Which means when election time comes, the economy is booming. All right? The economy is booming. So this type of, if it's our natural level of output, which is business cycle. If president is trying to make the economy look like this, politicians, okay? This kind of changes in the output is called political business cycle. Politicians, they artificially make it look very nice, okay? Which is not very healthy. Okay, so once the person became president, because all of this government spending, tax rate made budget deficit a lot, then after becoming president, there is no more any electoral fund. They will be starting increasing tax, okay? Then contractionary policy will start. And if it's going to happen, then it means that policy makers are not trusted at all. All right? This is the case. So therefore, because there is this kind of things that may happen, economists, they suggest to make government, the budget balance. Suggest. Okay. If government, the budget is, going to be balanced, politicians cannot implement that type of expansionary policy. because it will experience deficit. Okay? But of course, the balanced budget has also lots of shortcomings. We will talk about it maybe in our future topics. Okay? All right. And there is time inconsistency issue. Time inconsistency. So if there is one issue, okay, and there will be offered one optimal solution, and they will make that optimal decision now. But later in the future, when it comes, based on the situation, okay, which is happening in the economy, that optimal decision may change, which is called time inconsistency. Okay? Time is not consistent, changing. And why that kind of decisions are made? In order to effect on people's expectations. Policy announcements are made today in order to effect on our expectations. So, for example, a few months ago, what happened to our exchange rate? It was highly volatile, right? And our, the US dollar appreciated so much within 2 months, yes? Which was 8,000, a few hundred soons, it became 9,000, a few hundred soons, right? Over 1,000 appreciation of US dollar, okay? So, and what was the reaction of our government? How our government responded? Was there any response? There was a response, right? The chairman of the central bank, he just publicly on media, he announced, right? He said, oh yeah, it's, and he gave the reasons why it's happening. One case was, because there is, new customs law. Because of that one, now our, business people, they would like to buy before that, restriction is over. Because of that, there is higher demand for dollars. It's one reason. And another thing, why it was, because after that point, people became more pessimistic, which means that, Uzbek soon will be depreciating, all of them, because of them tried to convert into liquid US dollars, right? And when they were approaching banks, they were not selling US dollars. Which means that they were pouring oil to the fire. Do you understand? So when the chairman of central bank announced, from tomorrow there will be no limit for purchases of dollars. If you would like to come, you can buy as much as you wish. After that announcement, you can see that situation stabilized. Okay? Which means by making that announcement, he was able to effect all our expectations. Okay? So we should, it's not going to grow, that's easily available, there is no need for rushing. So therefore,
what about the factor? Did they sell dollar or no in the banks?
yes, if you have soup, you can buy. So there's no problem, you can buy. But you need your capital. It is more than $100. Good. So, and that time inconsistency issue, okay, it is inconsistency. It usually causes on credibility of policies, okay? For example, if central bank made an announcement, are we going to trust central bank? If central bank, for the long record of time, was doing everything perfectly, they will trust. Why? Because it is conducted by rules. It has strong commitment, which means the central bank is credible. If central bank is not credible, whatever policies which are going to be implemented in the economy, it will have less effect. Okay? Less effect. Have you seen this movie, Hostages?
No.
No? Me too. And I don't think that it's a movie. I just found the picture. Okay? Hostages. So there is an example about time inconsistency. For example, strict policy commitment not to negotiate with criminals, or discretionary policy in deciding whether to negotiate with criminals or not. There are countries, for example, let's suppose, I think US is one of them, okay? If one citizen of that country is kidnapped or they're taken by one criminal group, and they request what? Dollars. If you offer us $5 million, we will return your citizen back. Otherwise, we will kill you. Okay. So, but this economy, this country, okay, it is very, conducted by rule, commitment. And they made clear from the beginning, we are not going to negotiate with any criminals. If they request, if they call, send telegram message, doesn't matter, they don't respond. Because it's by law. They don't. Which means that if you took that person, if you want, you will return back, otherwise you kill. Of course, they will request, you must give it back, our citizen. You will have a problem. By law, it's not, but these people don't understand what is law. But there are other countries, okay, where if their citizens are taken as hostages, all right, they will do their best to return the citizens back. But at the same time, they will say, they are not going to negotiate regarding these issues. But when it happens, they will negotiate. It is this kind of discretionary policy. So which one is better? Not to negotiate or negotiate? If that person is your brother, this one is better. If he's not your brother, this one is better. Why should you pay that millions of money from your tax? Yes? So anyway, but it has really effect on criminals' mind. Why? Because if country A, they do not negotiate, and country B is negotiating, right? If there are two people from country B and A, they will prefer B country's people. Because
they will be
they will be negotiating, they can make a lot of money from it. Regarding this one, no need. He will be eating more food, this is it. Okay, it's like this. So therefore, under commitment is better. Which means that in the long run, they will not be hostage. And another example, by
this inconsistency example, right? I mean, it is from the perspective of standards or from the perspective of proportionality?
from the perspective of policy. Now, government made, right, that type of, we do. Is there any country that, which is obliged to negotiate with criminals? There is no, it's not allowed to negotiate because they're criminals. But by law, we are not going to negotiate. If it happens, they don't negotiate, which means that time is consistent. They are not changing. But if they will say, we do not negotiate when it comes to that case, they will negotiate. It's inconsistent, okay? Now, they are approaching different way. And for example, Kinlan and Prescott, in their seminal paper, which was published in 1977, okay, they brought very nice example about time commitment and discretion. And they gave, that people's preferences to living near the water. Do you like living near the shore? Would you like to live there? You wake up in the morning, right? sun is just, rising from that side. Fresh air. You see your kids are running on the sand. And you and your wife, you go and you do run. So nice place to live, right? Everyone likes to live in that type of place. And when the weather gets a bit warm, you can go and just sleep. It's so nice, right? But living in that type of place is not always safe, okay? Because it needs the shore, which means that it may be affected by some floods. Yeah? All right. So therefore, they are considering that type of example. People, they prefer living near the sea, near the shore side, okay? Like this one. Because, there are, probability of high flood that may, cause this type of situation. There is one way to prevent that type of problem by building dams, right? But government knows, and everyone knows, building dams is very expensive. If the government is under commitment, okay, conducted by rule, they will say, because it's too expensive, we are not going to build this dam. It's too expensive for us. From the beginning, it's clear, which means it's totally up to you. If you would like to build and wake up in that very nice morning, but with expected flood, it's up to you. Build. But people, they know it's not safe, they don't build. The solution is clear. Government does not build, people do not build their houses there. But under discretion, what about under discretion? Now there is 50-50, right? How is it? So now government can put a condition. If the number of people, household is going to increase more than 10,000, we may build. Not we will build, we may build. Alright? So which means that there is no perfect that solution for that one. You will start building, 10 households will be started building, okay? But the rest will not build. One possible option. Which means you build and after a few months your house is underwater. Another thing, you may build and when it comes to that time 1,000 house building. Okay? So this kind of policies may be implemented. So time inconsistency is with under discretion. Okay? Okay. So which is, as I already said, that Kisman and Presser, they published that seminal paper. Okay, then it's the experience, they tested that's how government is going to be more effective under commitment, or conducted by rule, or under discretion. Okay. And what about that, time inconsistency and monetary policy? There is always dilemma, right? There is always dilemma. So now, if central bank wants to control inflation, if they want to make it lower, it will increase unemployment. If they would like to make it higher, they will decrease unemployment, right? So this kind of, which means that one policy depends on the other. Both are very important. So, if we consider that Phillips curve is that correct, and it explains, let's suppose, perfectly the relationship between inflation and unemployment in the economy, where unemployment, it depends on natural level of unemployment and actual inflation and expected inflation, right? Expected inflation. So if the central bank is credible, which means that we trust the central bank. If we say that the central bank is making an announcement that the inflation is going to be 3%, what could be our expectations? If it's credible, if we trust, then it means that it will be 3%. Okay? But if central bank is not credible, if there is an announcement it's going to be 3%, then expected inflation we don't know. If the historical records were, if they said 3% it was higher, even higher, they will be expecting even much higher inflation. Okay? So which means that under this one, if there is some expansionary policy, then the expansionary policy will be with the smallest level of inflation. While under discretion there will be higher level of inflation. Because people don't trust central bank. Alright, another example. For example, to encourage investment, the government announced that it will not tax income from capital. Alright, encouraging investment. Is it good if we invest more?
Yeah.
It's good, right? So now government is making, announcing in order to effect on our expectations. So now they're saying no tax on your incomes, on your capital, invested capital. Then if it's no, then it seems that now doing business is very profitable. No tax. Millions or billions of dollars companies are built. Okay? If it's built, then if the economy is under discretion, then they will change their mind. Because those plants companies are already built. Whether they want or not, anyway they will pay. So now, excuse me, it was a wrong decision of our previous president, now we have to tax. Does it affect on people? It will definitely affect, right? Of course, they will be getting more to the budget, government budget, but it will definitely affect on the future, okay? Which means that other investors will not be investing. All developing countries, all. So now they really strongly attract investment, right? And what are they doing? If you invest to our country, 10 years no tax. You don't have to pay. And if you would like to the place to invest, whatever the land they will offer you. So which the property rights will be guaranteed, whatever, right? If that country has very strong, and it was conducted, all policies were conducted by rule, commitment, okay? And always, central bank and our government was doing a good job. Investors will really trust on them, and they will invest. And you can see why investment is not coming so much to our and other developing countries, because there is time inconsistency issue. Because they believe that, they approach that discretionary policy. So they will now say no tax, but once we build billions of dollars, then they will start taxing. Investors, they know it very well. Okay? Or another thing that I gave you that, example regarding research, right? For example, coronavirus today is now spreading, right, to other nations. And may God save us from that type of virus, yes, for all of us, it seems that very dangerous. And now all over the world, all of the developed countries, they are already spending billions of dollars for that research. The first research institute which is able to find drug that for that one will make this much profit. Okay? So they are doing it. Once it's found, it will be sold to all countries because so many people are affected, and that research institute is going to make huge profit. Huge. Okay? Why? The countries are willing to pay billions of dollars for that medication now. Why? Because just this case that happens in China, it already drew back Chinese economy to several years back. Just this 1 month case, okay? So therefore, because of that reason, that property rights should be strongly protected and patents should be killed. But let's suppose if coronavirus is found in China now, where they were promising, it will be, guaranteed, that prices, whatever it is, you can charge whatever the price you wanted. Once it happened, it's found, they will change their mind. It's not affordable for our people, now you should reduce the price. Which means that research institute will not be doing research anymore. Okay? Which means that it's time inconsistency. At the beginning, they said patent is guaranteed for 100 years, but now it's not even for a month. Rules for monetary policy. So monitors, okay, first of all, that there are very famous monitors like Milton Friedman, right? So which means that they were strongly arguing, now government does not have to intervene into the economy, right? The solution is that we have to approach that, constant growth in money in certain level. Then the economy will fix itself. But some other groups of economy, they will say, even though that, steady growth in money supply is going to effect, but there is always some certain type of shocks, like oil price shock, yes? Steady growth in money supply is going to, affect nicely positive to the economy if velocity of money is properly established. When there are shocks in the economy, that velocity does not work any properly anymore. Okay? So therefore, some other economy, they will say, monetary policy should be, should target the nominal GDP. Where when nominal GDP is higher than normal, government is going to reduce money supply in order to make it down. Or if it's under recession, okay, if it's less than normal, then they will increase money supply. Or many countries today, what do they target? In their monetary, they target inflation. Okay? If inflation is higher, they try to reduce money supply. If it's low, they increase money supply. Okay? Good. Look, if government, and central bank is credible, okay, and it's ruled by commitment, okay, they will announce one inflation rate, and they stick on this one, and they always keep it like this. But most of the countries, which are they're targeting inflation, they usually don't stick one single inflation rate. Rather, they will get a range. So it may fluctuate from 1% to 3%. Is it good? If it's 1% and 3%, it is normal for people. Okay? People don't become, pessimistic about the economy. So which means that if economy would like to make some expansionary policy, they will try to keep inflation close to 3%. If they would like to make it a down economy, they will try to keep it in 1%. Okay? 1%. But of course, even though the economy is credible, okay, and they're trying within this range, when there is, exogenous shock like oil price shock or some other shocks, okay, no way there will be high inflation in the economy or very low inflation. Which government, they should understand because of that oil price shock. Okay. All right, let's do a little math. Okay, so unemployment expressed at natural level of unemployment and inflation and expected inflation, right? So let's suppose this equation is true for the economy. Okay? Okay, the Phillips curve is true for the economy. Because both unemployment and inflation, if unemployment is not in its natural level, it will lead to negative outcomes, yes? If it's not. If it's lower than natural level or higher than natural level, both cases will lead to negative outcomes. If inflation is higher than normal, it will lead again to negative outcome. If it's less deflation, it will lead to negative outcomes, right? Both. So therefore, these both are, if changes on this one will result in loss to the economy, okay? So which means let's express the loss function, okay, as unemployment plus lambda by star. So it's going to effect, it will lead to loss in both cases. Higher unemployment, higher loss, whether it's positive or negative, still it will make loss higher. Okay? So now we will consider the case under commitment and under discretion. If it's under commitment or it's by rule, okay? Central bank is going to announce, okay? So we are going to central bank. Inflation is going to be this much. It will be because it's under commitment, which means that government is going to keep it same. What about what will be the expectation of inflation? It will be same. It will be same. Okay? Under rule. Which means that unemployment in this case will be natural level of unemployment minus alpha, which both are equal to each other, which is equal to 0. Unemployment is equal to natural level of unemployment. Okay? This is under commitment. Because we trust. Because we trust. And you know, during the seminar we will see how certain surprise to the economy is going to work under discretion and under commitment. Okay? So this is the case. But what about under discretion? Where these two are not the same. Once government, may announce a certain type of inflation rate, people will expect some difference. They don't. Okay? So therefore, central bank, it's dilemma for central bank to find one optimal solution. Optimal solution. And what that optimal solution is going to be. So look, in order to find an optimal solution, now we are going to consider our loss function where we will plot what our unemployment is equal to. Our loss function is equal to, unemployment is equal to natural level of unemployment minus alpha inflation, actual inflation minus expected inflation plus lambda phi squared. Phi squared. So now we would like to minimize, central bank wants to minimize loss. What can control central bank in this equation? Inflation. Can only control inflation, right? Can effect on inflation. So therefore, in order to minimize, we have to take first difference from this equation with respect to inflation, okay? So change in labor with change in loss with respect to inflation, okay? So where first difference of this one is equal to 0, yes, minus alpha times 1, right? First difference of pi is equal to 1. Of expected is 0, right? And plus 2 lambda pi, right? When it is going to be the most optimal solution? When loss is equal to 0, okay? Equal to 0. Minus alpha plus 2 lambda pi. In other words, our integration is equal to alpha over 2 lambda. If central bank is, they do perfect research, they may come up with this perfect solution, the most optimal solution, under discretion. If inflation is, that they choose this kind of inflation, which means that central bank was able to predict what expected inflation is going to be. Okay? So which means that under this condition, unemployment will be equal to natural level of unemployment. And now you compare under commitment and under discretion. Under commitment, natural level of unemployment was reached without any inflation. But under discretion, it reached natural level of unemployment with this much inflation, which no one likes. Okay? Okay. So these things I already explained. Okay, you can just go through. All right, last one. Central bank independence. Central bank independence. Is our central bank independent? No. No. Is Russia's central bank independent? No. But there are so many countries where central banks, that they are independent. Of course, there is influence of government. So now, that horizontal line represents that index of independence. Okay? So which means that Germany independence level is, that scale is 4. I think ours is going to be very high here. United States is 3.5. Okay? So based on level. And now they plotted this data for with inflation. And it turned out, okay, it was robust analysis, okay, it turned out that there is inverse relationship. More independent the central bank is, lower the inflation in the economy. Is it good?
Yeah.
Yes, okay. Because of this kind of findings, countries like New Zealand, it's better to make our central bank independent. All right? And further research was done regarding unemployment and output, how that the independence of central bank effect on unemployment and output, there was no significant thing found. No effect. But it has really effect on inflation. Okay? Good. So you can read it from your lovely book, which was written by Mac. Okay? Chapter 18, actually.